That other news rattling the Trump White House tonight, a federal judge issuing a ruling backing the Democratic subpoena for Donald Trump's banking records and rejecting his effort to halt it. So unless a higher court steps in, this means Trump is getting crushed on multiple fronts. Judicially, this is the second straight court loss for Trump's effort to defy subpoenas. Legislatively, New York state lawmakers passing a new bill today requiring Congress to get his state returns upon request. And then there's the executive branch, which Donald Trump runs but doesn't completely control within our system of government. Well, it turns out the experts at the IRS contradict the administration's claim that the Treasury Secretary can just ignore congressional requests for tax returns, which was a hot topic at his hearing today.
Did you discuss the memorandum with anybody inside the White House, outside the White House? I'm referring to legal counsel, I'm referring to lawyers, I'm referring to advisors.
Let me be clear. The only person I've discussed that memo with is my general counsel on the car ride over here who's sitting behind me.
You are at least aware that the conclusion of that memo directly contradicts the conclusion that you're relying upon?
No, I actually don't believe that's the case.
Joining me to discuss, David Corn from Mother Jones and Eleanor Clift back with me. What does this mean?
Well, the big picture here, and I don't know what the rap terminology would be, Ari.
Commas would be the rap term for this.
But the circle is closing in on Trump on multiple fronts. He likes to say again and again, I'm the most transparent president ever. Well, he's actually the least transparent president ever. Goes back to not releasing the tax returns. And he has, we wrote about this before the election, couldn't make it a big issue, $300 million in loans to Deutsche Bank, a foreign institution that's been in trouble for, not quite money laundering, but doing funny things with Russian money, and up against U.S. regulators.
And not funny, haha.
Not funny, haha. And so the conflict of interest there is gigantic. And so whether it's looking at Deutsche Bank, looking at his taxes, he has 552 LLCs, limited liability corporations, on his financial disclosure form. We know nothing about any of them. I mean, we don't know. We know very little about his finances overall and how he's supported himself, and even now, because he hasn't given up the Trump Organization, with money from overseas.
And you wonder whether, looking at Steve Mnuchin today, who is supposed to worry about the financial system writ large and everyone's 401ks and the stock market and the financing and the monetary policy to some degree, look at him today looking like the only thing he needs to do is defend Donald Trump's personal interest in the tax returns. This was in the hearing.
So do you think the American people have a right to know what's in those tax forms?
No, I don't.
Do you know what he's hiding? I mean, he doesn't want anybody to see him, certainly not Congress.
I don't think he's hiding anything, but
okay, so you don't know.
Correct. I don't know anything about his tax return.
All right.
Well, he is hiding something. He's hiding his tax returns. Every major presidential candidate has put it out. We have the tax returns for the Clintons because they both ran at different points in time. I think going back to the 1970s in the public record. He keeps saying that he's been audited. Well, then give us the taxes from 10 years ago. Oh, but you can't because the New York Times did a story showing that his whole family avoided taxes to the tune of $400 million. I mean, Mnuchin, eventually this is going to hit a wall, right? This will go through the court system, and a judge will decide whether this phony argument of the White House that you can't ask for this stuff is real or not. And they will probably order Mnuchin or the IRS director to produce the tax returns.
Well, and
what happens if they say no?
Well, depends how many sources there are, because you can also go to the outside auditors and these other mechanisms. I mean, Eleanor, David says it's going to hit a wall. And one of the beautiful things in our system, I believe, is that wall is parchment. And the founders gave this a lot of thought. And that's why there is more than one branch. And we heard today from several members of Congress who said Bill Barr is starting to cooperate more a little bit with the Intelligence Committee. Donald Trump is clearly having his own version of reaction, that the multiple third branch, judicial branch rulings enforcing these subpoenas is putting heat on the Trump administration.
Well, I think these cabinet officials, plus the individuals on the outside who no longer work for the government, at some point their own self-interest is going to come into play. I'm not saying they're all going to do a Michael Cohen and flip, but I think they're not going to stand undivided in protecting this man. Now, I want to go back to what Congresswoman Lee said. She is suggesting that there is going to be a floor vote in the House. That would be partisan lines. Maybe Justin Amash should get one Republican. And this is political war. The country is so divided, and you cannot wage war in a democracy if you do not have public support. And these court rulings, this step-by-step squeezing of the administration is going to explain to the American people what is wrong with this president and why he should not be in office. That may take into 2020. I don't know, but I think that step-by-step approach is what Nancy Pelosi is advocating, and I think it's beginning to pay off. And I'm so looking forward to understanding why he didn't want us to see his tax returns. I'd like to also know how much money he personally made because of the tax cuts that he pushed through. I mean, there are wonderful little pieces of information here that can be politicized and weaponized. I have to argue for Democrats.
A million little pieces,
right?
Perhaps.
Exactly.
If not a billion. It depends who you believe.
Right,
Eleanor
possibly.
Clift and David Corn, thanks to both of you. And David tweets about this every day, right?
Almost, yes.
Almost every day.
Not on the weekends.
It'd be every weekday. It'd be a good day to see the tax returns. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.